Hi, Idealistas. I'm going to read to you from our Harry Potter today. Looks like we're almost at the end of the chapter. We're going to start off on the top of page 511. Okay? So, we just read that Harry, or Dumbledore is telling Harry that Voldemort created Harry as his own enemy. Not because of what the prophecy said, but because of what Voldemort did, like his actions. So we're going to keep reading. It says, so we're going to start right here about a paragraph down on page 11. It says, "You are protected, in short, by your ability to love," said Dumbledore loudly. "The only protection that can possibly work against the lure of power like Voldemort's. In spite of all the temptation you have endured, all the suffering, you remain pure of heart, just as pure as you were at the age of 11, when you stared into a mirror and reflected your heart's desires, and it showed you only the way to thwart Lord Voldemort, and not immortality or riches. Harry, have you any idea how few wizards could have seen what you saw in the mirror? Voldemort should have known then that what he was dealing with, but he did not. But he knows now. You have flitted into Lord Voldemort's mind how without damage to yourself, but he cannot possess you without enduring mortal agony. And he discovered in the ministry. I do not think he understands why, Harry, but then he was in such a hurry to mutilate his own soul, he never paused to understand the incomparable power of a soul that is untarnished and whole." So he's comparing Voldemort's soul, which is broken into a whole bunch of different pieces, and Harry's soul, which is whole and complete and strong. Okay. "But, sir," said Harry, making valiant efforts not to sound argumentative, "it all comes to the same thing, doesn't it? I've got to try and kill him, or..." "Got to," said Dumbledore. "Of course you've got to, but not because of the prophecy, because you, yourself, will never rest until you've tried. We both know it. Imagine, please, for a moment," next page, "that you had never heard that prophecy. How would you feel about Voldemort now? Think." Harry watched Dumbledore striding up and down in front of him, and thought. He thought of his mother, his father, and Sirius. He thought of Cedric Diggory. He thought of all the terrible deeds he knew Lord Voldemort had done. A flame seemed to leap inside his chest, searing his throat. "I'd want him finished," said Harry quietly, "and I'd want to do it." "Of course you would," cried Dumbledore. "You see, the prophecy does not mean that you have to do anything, but the prophecy caused Lord Voldemort to mark you as his equal. In other words, you are free to choose your way, quite free to turn your back on the prophecy. But Voldemort continues to set store by the prophecy. He will continue to hunt you, which makes it certain, really, that one of us is going to end up killing the other," said Harry. Yes. But he understood at last what Dumbledore had been trying to tell him. It was, he thought, the difference between being dragged into an area to face a battle to the death and walking into an area with your head held high. Some people perhaps would say that there was little to choose between the two ways. But Dumbledore knew, and so do I, thought Harry, in a rush of fierce pride, and so did my parents. That there was all the difference in the world. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. I know in our reading today it says we're going to read to page... Let me look real quick. It says we're going to read to page... Oh, we can keep reading. Okay. So, I'm going to start reading on chapter 24, Sectum Sempra? I don't know. There it is. Sectum Sempra. Sectum sempra. Your guess is as good as mine. Okay. Exhausted but delighted with his night's work, Harry told Ron and Hermione everything that had happened during the next morning's charms lesson. Having first cast the mufflato spell upon those nearest them. Oh, mufflato, muffling people's ears so they couldn't hear. They were both satisfyingly impressed by the way he had wielded the memory out of Slughorn, and positively awed when he told them about Dumbledore's Horcruxes and about Voldemort's Horcruxes and Dumbledore's promise to take Harry along. Should he find another one? Wow, said Ron when Harry had finally finished telling them everything. Ron was waving his wand very vaguely in the direction of the ceiling without paying the slightest bit of attention to what he was doing. Wow, you're actually going with Dumbledore? And try and destroy... Wow. Ron, you're making it snow, said Hermione patiently, grabbing his wrist and redirecting his wand away from the ceiling, from which, sure enough, large white flakes had started to fall. Lavender Brown, Harry noticed, glared at Hermione from the neighboring table with very red eyes, and Hermione immediately let go of Ron's arms. Oh yeah, said Ron, looking down at his shoulders in vague surprise. Sorry, looks like we've all got horrible dandruff now. He brushed some of the fake snow from Hermione's shoulder. Lavender burst into tears. Ron looked immensely guilty and turned his back on her. Okay, so I'm going to make an inference. I'm going to use a clue from the story, and I'm going to use my personal connections and just common sense, and I'm going to say that Lavender and Ron have broken up. Does it say that in the text? No, but the clues, Lavender burst into tears, Lavender looked at Hermione with very red eyes, those all point to, or you can infer that Ron and Lavender split up, okay? So, it says, he brushed some of the fake snow off Hermione's shoulder. Lavender burst into tears. Ron looked immediately guilty and turned his back on her. We split up, he told Harry out of the corner of his mouth, last night when she saw me coming out of the dormitory with Hermione. Obviously she couldn't see you, so she thought it had just been the two of us. Ah, said Harry. Well, you don't mind it's over, do you? No, Ron admitted. It was pretty bad while she was yelling, but at least I didn't have to finish it. Coward, said Hermione, though she looked amused. Well, it was a bad night for romance all around. Ginny and Dean split up too, Harry. Harry thought there was a rather knowing look in her eye as she told him that. But she could not possibly know what his insides were suddenly dancing the conga. Keeping his face as immobile and his voice as indifferent as he could, he asked, How come? Oh, something really silly. She said he was always trying to help her through the porthole key like she couldn't climb in herself, but they've been a bit rocky for ages. Harry glanced over at Dean on the other side of the classroom. He certainly looked unhappy. Alright, Idealistas, I'm going to stop right there. We are on a new chapter, and Harry's social life is more being talked about here. He is excited that Dean and Ginny broke up because he has a crush on Ginny, and looks like Ron and Lavender broke up, so it seems like I don't know, a lot of things are starting to happen. So I would like you to go to the classroom page, or go to the question that's attached to this assignment and answer it. Write a summary of what you read today, and then go ahead and tell me what you also liked the most about today's reading. Okay? Talk to you later.